right, Raren, we got you back again. People loved you so much from the last video that I thought because you are a Hearthstone player and you love everything having to do with randomness and RNG that I'm going to show you some of Yu-Gi-Oh's most iconic RNG-based cards. And your goal today is to tell us whether or not you think this card is good or bad. What do you think about that?
I mean, okay, first I gotta set the record straight. RNG is, I mean, I'm the most unlucky player when it comes to Hearthstone, so we don't have a good relationship. I actually am excited. I do know one.
Okay, what do you know?
Time Wizard.
Okay.
Is like, I believe that is an RNG, right? The flipping heads or tails.
It is.
And then there was one card that we played with, which was flipping heads or tails, and then it would stop your attack or something. It was in that video we did a while ago.
Mm-hmm. The Edison one?
Yeah. No, the one that was on your
the arena one. Yeah, the arena one. That's right.
That's the only one I remember. Those are it.
Well, that may or may not come up in today's video, so we'll have to see. We'll start you with an easy one. I had to, because you're a Hearthstone player, I had to pick cards with minimal text. So there's not many options in Yu-Gi-Oh, but we're going to start you with a really easy one here, okay? What do you think about this card?
Goddess of the Whim, or not the Whim, Goddess of Whim. Toss a coin. Okay, before we even start, am I going to guess that I'm an average player and it literally is a 50-50, or is this me personally where I know I'm just going to get fucked up?
You know, dealer's choice. Dealer's choice. How about that?
Toss a coin, call it heads or tails, call it right, and this card's attack will double during this turn. Call it wrong, and it will be half during this turn.
So I'm going to give you some context. This card was released in like the first year or two of Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's very old card. This is an incredibly old card. But so the power level of the game is relatively low. The average like baseline attacking monster was like 1700 1800. That's kind of like what you're working with in terms of like actual cards here. So very basic gameplay.
Okay, so hold on. You said the basic like non-sacrifice minion here, the basic attacks are on 1700.
Correct.
Do I toss a coin, call it heads or tails? You do this every single turn, or can I do this infinitely? Because it doesn't say once per turn. So can I just
keep... Doesn't say once per turn.
Wait, can you actually keep tossing it? Wait, there's no way that's real. There's no way that's real, dude. You can actually stall a game out until you basically... Well, actually, I guess you can never get to 0, but at some point the number would get so low that it'd be so unlikely to get back at a good point. Also, you could just get lucky. This is the stupid ass card. There's no way this is
I started off with a good one, didn't I?
Is this what you have to answer this? Is it once per turn, or can I do it infinitely?
Does it say once per turn on the card?
No, it does not. So I have to get 2 coins in a row for this to be like above average. Maybe if I do it again, I feel like, dude, this is so fucking I guess theoretically it's broken. Like if you play this and you actually hit the coin cost multiple times, like you could just win the game, potentially turn 2, right?
The coin cost, right? Yeah.
So wait, but as far as I remember, you going first, you can't attack, but if you go second, you can attack. I want to say it's broken just because like you can legitimately infinitely just keep flipping a coin to the point where you're just happy with the attack. This could be a 1-turn kill and with 1 card. So it has to be broken. Like there's no way.
Final answer?
Yeah, that's my final answer.
So Goddess of Whim is a very interesting card, and a lot of newer players probably maybe never even seen this card before because it's very old. So funny enough, this was actually a card that was released. I don't know if you know this at all, but Yu-Gi-Oh actually released cards at McDonald's as like a toy for a Happy Meal. And so this is, you can actually see there in the photo, MP1. This is actually a McDonald's promo card. It was a super rare too. So it was actually like, you weren't guaranteed to get a holo or a rare in every pack. Most of the time it was just common. So this is actually kind of hard to acquire because it was a super. But this is the very first printing of this card. And as you aptly observed, there is no once per turn written anywhere on this card. So as you were theorizing, you are correct that you could hypothetically infinitely toss coins until you feel like you're content with where Goddess of Whim's attack stat falls. If it gets above like 8,000, for instance, you could hypothetically OTK your opponent. Now, that wasn't the way this card was meant to work. It was meant to be a once per turn, but you know, Yu-Gi-Oh being Yu-Gi-Oh, they obviously didn't put that on the card, and they probably didn't think that people were going to take that seriously, that you could infinitely do that. You could also just infinitely toss coins and then just like never actually have the game go anywhere. You could just keep tossing coins for 40 minutes and be like, all right, the game's a draw, right? If you actually wanted to be a dick. You're actually progressing the game state technically. Yeah, so Goddess of Whim, in theory, would be one of the most broken coin toss cards in existence, but it wasn't printed the way it was actually supposed to work. So it's actually really bad, but this version that I showed you is actually one of the most broken cards in old Yu-Gi-Oh! So technically you're correct. So I'll give you a point on the board for it.
They reprinted this card that say once per turn?
They did, yes.
Okay,
the very next printing, I'm fairly certain, says once per turn on it because they quickly realized that they made their mistake. Or I'm not sure what the correct logic is behind it, but they realized they fucked up and they're like, okay, yeah, we have to make sure we change this because the card says what it says, right?
Yeah. So if we didn't do the previous episode, I would have said this is immediately bad because I would have thought it in Hearthstone terms, right? Because in Hearthstone, it doesn't, unless it's like a very explicit thing, it will say once per turn, but on average, like if you do an effect, it's just done. Like it'll say like at the end or battle cry. So like, I'm really glad that we did that last episode because that actually helped me out a ton. That's such a
Speaking of stupid cards, you mentioned that you may be familiar with this one, so it's going to make an appearance again.
Fairy Box. It does seem familiar. Each time a monster on your opponent's side of the field attacks, toss a coin and call heads or tails. If you call it right, the attacking monster's attack becomes 0 only during the battle phase. You pay 500 life points during each of your standby phases. If you do not, this is destroyed. If I was a complete new person to Yu-Gi-Oh, I think I would think this is bad, but often your life points are like your hero or your health points, whatever, are used as a resource. Actually winning you the game, it doesn't matter how much life points you are actually spending as long as you don't die. So I would imagine this card was, I'm just trying to think about why this one, because this is like older Yu-Gi-Oh as well.
A lot of the cards I'll be showing you are fairly old. This is from around the same era of Goddess of Whim. So I'll let you know if it's like a newer card. You can also just tell because like the card just looks newer. This looks like you found it in like a shoebox.
I'm just thinking of the Goddess of Whim coming out and you have this on board and your opponent does all this work to make sure he can OTK you and then you just flip one coin, they lose.
Well, that's if you hit the 50-50.
You just have to hit the 50-50. I think this card's good. I remember it being pretty strong. I'm just trying to think of like why this wouldn't be played. In Hearthstone, I would probably pay the equivalent for this just to make a minion not attack. If I could, actually, I don't know. Hearthstone, I guess it's a little worse.
Yeah, so Hearthstone, I don't know the equivalent for this because like, I mean, does Hearthstone have like permanent entities that like stay out that like are just like a constant effect? Like, is there equivalent of like a continuous trap card in Hearthstone?
Not a trap card. There are effects that are permanent at the end of the game. So for instance, like there's a card that says for the rest of the game this happens. I just don't think they have anything defensive like this. I also feel like from a game design perspective, this is fucking miserable.
I mean, this seems like a good card for Hearthstone, right? For the rest of the game, your opponent's minions have a 50-50 chance to just crash into it and just like blow themselves up for no reason. That seems great.
There's 100% possibility that people are going to uninstall from this card. So, I mean, in that case, I have to imagine it's good. This is a good effect. I would probably like,
final answer.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So counterintuitively, this card is actually very bad.
Wow.
This is something that. It's weird. So in the context of old Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a lot of ways to destroy spell and trap cards. And especially because this is a continuous trap, you're able to use spell and trap removal reactively if your opponent were to flip this to be able to pop it almost mid-attack so that the effect actually doesn't resolve. But this is something that, it's interesting you said that you thought as a new Yu-Gi-Oh player, you thought this would be bad, because a lot of new Yu-Gi-Oh players actually see this and think it's very good. Just because of the fact that, again, it applies to all opposing monsters' attacks. There's a 50-50 chance they go to 0, but in terms of like what other competitive cards are like around during this time, like there's no way you would play this over actual removal. You're not going to play a 50-50 where you can guarantee kill the monster.
So I'm thinking it through the lens of what we played, that like arena format. And
Sure.
now that you bring that up, like the whole explanation, we didn't really have guaranteed like removal for your trap cards. So
Precisely.
Yeah, in that particular mode, it's very good. But
yes,
you're right.
in arena or any sort of limited format, this card's actually crazy because you can't get rid of it. And so like you'll happily pay the 500 every turn to keep this around because now all of a sudden I don't want to send my monsters in because if they die, then like I'm just going to, like you said, uninstall the game. So it's a very frustrating card. It's a very meme-y card. It was actually used by Joey in the anime because he's like the RNG master. It's very bad, but it's good in limited, if anything. But you don't get a point for that one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. No, it's weird how like our experience really like biased me there. Because I was like, for sure, this was good. Like, I remember it being insane. I think I won a game because of it.
So we're going to show you, I don't know if I've shown you any fusion monsters yet, but we're going to go ahead and show you. You've seen Thousand Eyes Restrict. So here's another purple card for you.
Okay, so remind me how this works. Is this like you have to sacrifice a bunch of creatures to get this? Or
how fusion monsters work is you have to have both of the listed cards, which in this case is Barrel Dragon and Blowback Dragon, or there are other ways to substitute the materials. There are cards that say you can use this card as a substitute for one of the named monsters. There are other cards that you've seen previously, such as Cyberstein and such, that can cheat this guy out onto the field immediately. So there are multiple ways to get this card onto the field. Why don't you give it a read?
Okay, Gatling Dragon. Once per turn, you could toss a coin 3 times and destroy as many monsters on the field as possible, but not more than the number of heads. Okay, so for each coin you get heads, you destroy a monster, but you can only do that a maximum of 3 times.
Correct. Well, you toss 3 no matter what.
What the fuck? I mean, dude, it's so difficult because the card's actually probably insane if you just hit 3 heads, obviously. But then it's so bad if you hit tails, because this doesn't seem like a great stat line for like one of these creatures. Right? I think there's way better stat line.
So this is again an old Yu-Gi-Oh card. So again, like the context of big Yu-Gi-Oh monster is like Blue Eyes White Dragon, like 3,000. So 2,600 is still a pretty decent stat line, all things considered, for this time period.
Specifically speaking about the stat line, this is like fine. Like it's not a bad.
It's good. You're not going to complain about the stat line of this card. I'll give you that. I'll give it as a hint.
Okay, so okay. So just be really lucky and you win the game.
This is also like the most Yu-Gi-Oh card ever. It's a dragon that has a Gatling gun as its head and 2 Gatling guns as its arm.
I'm pretty sure on the inside it's just saying "kill me" in a very like
probably
rough voice. So this is it's kind of messed up. Is there? I wonder if there's a card. Obviously, you don't have to tell me. I wonder if there's a card that almost has the same effect, but it can hit any card on the field, because that might be more relevant. Like I remember when I played it like in Modern, like Baron was like really good just because you could just kind of get rid of a card.
So would you like to see the materials to make Gatling Dragon for context? Because they have similar effects.
And I guess Yu-Gi-Oh is the first real card where you have to use other cards to kind of not generate, but like get another card on the board. No one's ever asked me this before. I'm kind of curious to see how this goes.
So here's Blowback Dragon. Why'd you give that a read?
What is that? This is the tiniest card someone's ever sent me. Hold on. So this can't be normal summoned.
This is a 1 tribute monster, correct?
So toss a coin 3 times. If at least 2 of the results are heads, select 1 card of your opponent's side of the field and destroy it. Activate this effect once per turn during your main phase.
And here's Barrel Dragon.
Hold on a fucking second. I just realized on Gatling Dragon it doesn't say once per. Oh no, it does say once per turn. Again, I'm on psych. Okay, Barrel Dragon is once per turn. This is one normal sacrifice as well.
This is a 2 tribute monster.
This is 2 tribute. Okay. Once per turn, you could target 1 monster your opponent controls. Toss coin 3 times and destroy it if at least 2 of the results are heads. Blowback Dragon's actually like a relatively okay card. I mean, in the grand scheme of RNG, like that's a pretty good card. Barrel Dragon's, I think, worse, to be honest. Why would you want to only get it down to 1 or monsters when you can have any card in the field? And then, so just so I'm aware, you have to have both these cards on the field to get Gatling Dragon if we're just talking about how you normally summon this.
No, so you can, as long as you have the 2 materials and the polymerization spell, you could even just have them in your hand and special summon the Gatling Dragon. It doesn't have to be on the field. So you don't need to tribute these guys out in order to summon the Gatling Dragon.
I think adding the context did make this a little... I think the Blowback Dragon... You're going to have to tell me like individually if these cards are good on their own. I think Blowback Dragon's actually good. But why would you want to limit yourself to only monsters? Can I use the Blowback Dragon, use its effect, and then sacrifice it to get the Gatling Dragon on the field?
Does it say you can't?
Oh my god, I hate you so much. You remind me of, hey teacher, can I go to the washroom? They go, I don't know, can you?
I can't give you all the answers.
I'm just asking. I'm not 100% convinced on Barrel Dragon. The fact that it's 2 sacrifices makes me feel like it's a little too whatever. Blowback Dragon, considering it's only 1 normal sacrifice, seems like it's fine. I think Gatling Dragon...
I'll give you a little bit of context. Barrel Dragon was released first out of these 3. Barrel Dragon was released in the 2nd set ever. Blowback Dragon and Gatling Dragon came out, I want to say 2 years later.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense why that one's better. Interesting. I feel, okay, if I have to give you like a definitive answer, I think Gatling Dragon's probably a little weak. I feel like for what you're going for, there's probably just better effects in the game. And even though you don't have to land like a majority of the heads or like your coin hitting heads, I feel like it's just not good enough. I feel like there's just better cards.
Okay.
That being said, individually, I think Blowback Dragon's actually like a pretty okay card.
Okay. And you think Barrel Dragon sucks? I'm pretty sure you said before.
I think Barrel Dragon is just not good for the double sacrifice. There's probably better cards as well for like what you could do with Barrel Dragon.
So Gatling Dragon, no. Blowback Dragon you actually think is good. And Barrel Dragon is also bad.
Yeah, but the way you said it makes me question if I'm right.
Final answer? Final answer?
Final answer. Final answer.
So I'm going to start with Barrel Dragon. You are correct. Barrel Dragon is awful. It's like, for old Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's probably fine. But again, like there's actual cards that kill things. So why would you take you need to get 2 out of 3 coins to actually blow something up, especially for 2 tributes. There are ways that you could get Barrel Dragon to the graveyard and like resurrect it so you don't have to actually tribute it, which makes it slightly better. But you could do that with anything. So it's not like you have to do that with just Barrel Dragon. So Barrel Dragon's bad. It always has been bad. To be fair, I think again, in like a limited sense, Blowback Dragon's probably okay. The fact that it can go after any card is quite good, but Blowback Dragon is a card that just rarely saw any play. There were better things you could be tributing for. Gatling Dragon, for all intents and purposes, is pretty bad, but I did mention earlier with Cyberstein, you can cheat this card out. You remember that from the previous episode. So paying 5,000 life points for a 2,600 that is also able to just pop potentially 3 monsters isn't bad. If you're playing a deck that has a Cyberstein in it or has a way to cheat out the Gatling Dragon, there's another card I'll quickly show you here. It's called Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a really cool card.
Too. I think
so.
It's
What
on the draft,
you
right?
actually played it, yeah, because that's how you summoned your Thousand Eyes in our arena episode. So Metamorphosis says you tribute a monster and special summon a fusion monster with the same level. If you have a level 8 monster, which during this time there are a few good ones, there was a deck that like sort of tried to cheat Gatling Dragon out like this. You could Metamorphosis your guy and summon out Gatling Dragon, and then all of a sudden you can just pop stuff for free. Now the biggest downside with Gatling Dragon, however many coins you flip, you have to destroy that many monsters. So if you go 1 over the amount of monsters your opponent has, you have to blow up the Gatling Dragon or one of your own monsters. So it almost just like goes into overdrive, and it's too much destruction. So it's even worse than you might think at first, because yeah, I can pop 3 monsters, cool, but you can also pop your own stuff too. Like let's say your opponent has 1 monster and you have 2. If you hit 3 heads, you blow up your own field on top of it.
Does it kill itself in the process if there's no other monsters?
It does. It blows up everything. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's
so
that's ours.
Very goofy card, very funny card. And again, like it's okay in the right circumstances, but for the most part, I would say most people would probably say this is not a great card. So you got it right. You got it right.
I also feel like with cards like Metamorphosis, it's always really interesting because it doesn't mean that Gatling Gun's like a good, or sorry, Gatling Dragon's a good card. It's like Metamorphosis is the only thing that matters, right?
Right.
Like, you'd rather use that for like literally anything else if there's just a single better card. So yeah.
We're gonna add a little bit more text here. It's a slightly more simplified version.
Cyber Jar.
You're gonna love this one. You love RNG. You're gonna love this card. Read this one for us.
Destroy all monsters on the field. Then both players reveal the top 5 cards of their decks. It's special summon all reveal level 4 or lower monsters in face up attack position or face down defense position. Any remaining cards to their hand. If either player has less than 5 cards in their deck, reveal as many as possible. Oh my god. If I flip it at the start of my turn, all the monsters that gets potentially summoned, they can attack that turn as well.
That's correct.
Okay, why do I think this is actually good? Is there like a Flame Strike equivalent that just destroys all enemy monsters on the board?
Are there board wipes in Yu-Gi-Oh? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I guess, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. See, in Hearthstone, I'm trying to think if we have anything close to this in Hearthstone. There kind of is, I guess. There's a card that, like, actually from a pretty recent set that just says each player fills the board with random minions from their deck.
I would say, yeah, so if you had a board wipe on top of that, that's basically what this card is.
Yeah, so often one of the reasons why that card wasn't successful in Hearthstone is because it costs 9 mana. So you'd have to play it, and then, you know, depending on what minions were summoned, your opponent like could just win the game because they just have better minions than you do, etc. But if you had that card and I didn't have to spend the mana on it and I could destroy my opponent's board in the same process, like that's obviously very powerful.
For some context, this is once again an old card. So this is like the 3rd set that was ever released. This came in. So very simple game where you're really only normal summoning like one guy a turn.
Also add any remaining card. So any card that's not a monster is added to your hand?
Correct. So all spells and traps will go to both players' hands. Also, if it's level 5 or higher, that monster also goes to your hand.
Okay, just remind me as well, when, let's say I'm doing this on my turn and my opponent draws a trap card, they can't play it that turn. Like it has to be set, or can they?
Right, it would have to be set, and plus like they can't even play anything anyway because it's your turn.
You mean during this time period, right? Because like I remember my opponent's playing spells like on my
yeah.
turn.
Okay. Old Yu-Gi-Oh didn't have like you can activate traps straight from the hand.
This might be a wild guess here, but I'm gonna think this is actually pretty good. This actually seems good. You're cheating out you're cheating out monsters. So is your opponent, but you also get additional resources that you can use immediately and your opponent can't. For a monster that you could just play on turn 1, and then if your opponent attacks into it, like there's like a whole fun game that's about to happen. I think this is good. Yeah, I'm down to say this is good. I think it could be played.
Okay, final answer.
Yeah, okay, you're smirking back there for sure.
So, Cyberjar is a very funny card. I think you pointed out a lot of the main pros and cons of the card. So we like to call this a casino card because when Cyberjar flips, literally fucking anything can happen. You might be winning and all of a sudden now you're losing. Maybe you hit 5 spells and traps and your opponent hit 5 monsters and the game is over. Or it could go the other way, right? So like this card can really just throw the game into just complete disarray. And the jars are actually a series of cards that do similar effects to this, where basically let you draw 5 cards, but do some other thing to affect the board. So maybe it doesn't destroy the board, but maybe it'll just like discard your hand to draw 5, or shuffle everything into the deck and draw 5 cards or something like that. So the jars are notorious throughout Yu-Gi-Oh! They all have the dumbass little eyeball with the smiling face on the left there. So you are correct. Cyberjar is in fact actually a good card. It was actually banned for quite some time just because it's a very annoying effect to resolve. It doesn't say like the order of like how you resolve it. So like both players are like technically supposed to take 5 cards and reveal them, and you're both supposed to like simultaneously put them on the field, like the monsters, like in attack or set. It's not like you do it first, then your opponent. So it's just a really pain in the ass card. It was banned for a really long time, and then it got unbanned when they're like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh's way too good now, like where Cyberjar just is. You're not setting flip monsters in 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh for the most part.
Yeah,
so
makes sense to me. I was gonna say this actually it reminds me a ton of like the minion version of Yogg-Saron in a sense. Where it's
right,
like almost
that's a good example.
Like worst case scenario for you if you're putting this in your deck is like you clear the board and then you're just hoping something good happens for you. Turned out to be really good at Hearthstone, so I'd imagine that it's almost the exact same thing in like older Yu-Gi-Oh. So that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. It's a good highlight card for sure from the old days, but there wasn't really a lot of like, you know, videos of old Yu-Gi-Oh. But anytime we've ever gone back to play retro format, Cyberjar is always a good time. That's for sure. For sure. I'm actually in I was gonna say I'm surprised Hearthstone hasn't printed something like that, but I think they probably learned from Yu-Gi-Oh like to not print something like this.
Yeah, no, it's a disaster. It'd be easier to implement in like a digital platform, but for a physical card game, Cyberjar was always just a hassle to resolve. What do you think of this card?
Ordeal of a Traveler. You can only activate this card's effect when your opponent declares an attack. Your opponent selects one random card in your hand and calls the type of card. So there's only the 3 types: monster, spell, or trap. Okay. If your opponent calls it wrong, the attacking monsters return to the owner's hand.
Note too that this is also a continuous trap, so this stays active.
That's oh my god. So in Hearthstone, the closest thing I think we had was probably Freezing Trap, which was when your opponent attacks with a minion, it goes back to your opponent's hand and it costs 2 more. That was it, but that's guaranteed. And the way that Hearthstone works often is that there's not enough secrets in the game where you're like lost of what trap it could be. It would be like, oh, I'm deducing it down, so this must be freezing. Unless you have no ways of actually deducing, you're just hoping for the best. But yeah, often like you can figure out what it is. This is I mean, technically speaking, in an older day of Yu-Gi-Oh, this could be absolutely devastating, right? Mm-hmm. You have your blue eyes, you spent all your game getting it out, and then you lost the 66% chance, and just you're just crying. Yep. Like you can't even replay it because you have to go through the whole like charade again of getting it back on the board. The interesting thing about Yu-Gi-Oh is like if I set a freezing trap down, I no longer can be like, oh, I don't want to freeze that minion. Like it is up to my opponent to attack correctly to then proc the freezing trap in the way that they want. Yu-Gi-Oh, sure. I don't actually have to activate this card unless I want to. So you can leave it there for a while and your opponent would just be like, what is this? But I don't think the mind games in Yu-Gi-Oh really matter. I think mind games and card games are very overrated. The way that I think about it is, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh, if I'm setting a card down, there's a good chance my opponent is going to deal with it at some point. So I'd rather get the value immediately rather than holding it for the perfect situation. And like this is like probably what it's going to be like. And once this card's flipped, it's still doing something. Like your opponent has to answer this card. Or maybe they're just the best player of all time. Because this card could also just be horrible, right? But the fact that you have a higher % chance to actually, this is really bad game design, like full transparency. This is fucking horrible. I hate this shit so much.
You might be noticing a trend with older Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, but I think this one has a little bit of agency, I guess, because you could kind of think about how your opponent would build their deck, which is kind of nice. You're not just flipping a coin. Like there is something to think about here. This is really interesting. I think, God, it just really depends on how obnoxious you can be with it. You could be so obnoxious. This could win you the game. Like you can stop your opponent from playing the game with only this card. So it comes down to how likely is this to get like popped so it just gets off the battlefield. But more importantly, here's a question. What if you have no cards in hand? Like, what does your opponent call?
If you have no cards in hand, I don't think you're allowed to activate this card. So when you attack into an opponent using Ordeal of a Traveler, they have the option to activate it. And so I think if they don't have a hand, I actually just think they just don't even get the option to activate it because they can't call anything, right? So like it just won't take effect.
I was gonna say, like, maybe that's actually the strat where you just have nothing in your hand. You just go pick a card, idiot, and then like you just have a 100% chance of always bouncing their minion back.
Well, no. So to clarify, when you attack someone who has Ordeal of a Traveler, you're picking a card in their hand to call correctly.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, if I'm attacking into this and my opponent has no cards in their hand, I can't pick, like, I can pick one, but there's no cards in my opponent's hand. So like I was thinking, like, you just always get your minion bounce back to your hand if you're attacking into someone.
Oh, no, yeah. No, that doesn't work. If there's no cards, it just doesn't activate. You need at least one card. Yeah, I'll clarify that. That would be insane if that worked.
I thought I was cooking there for sure. I was like,
you were cooking. You might have been overcooking a little bit.
That's the metagame breaker right there. Comes down to you just getting rid of your hand. That's actually so fun.
I mean, it's Yu-Gi-Oh, so honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
Most of the time, you just like, this is probably a fair question, but I'd imagine most of the win conditions during this time are like monster centric, right?
Correct. Yep.
So this is a much more devastating. I think this was probably fine. I don't know if it's really tough because I don't want to say it's like really good because again, there's always that factor you're just gonna like not do anything with this card.
Yeah, pick one or the other. No middle ground. No cop out rare.
Okay,
Come on.
On average, this card's fine. On average, this card's fine. It was probably played. It seems very powerful.
Okay, this card sucks.
Dude, I went through 5 minutes. I'm trying to like explain in my head like what this card is, and you just say
the
no,
faces I was making as you were talking yourself up and gassing how good this card is. I'm like, absolutely. Okay, so for context, I will say this card, similar to Fairy Box, there's a lot of parallels with Fairy Box here. This card, similar to Fairy Box, absolutely wreaked havoc on the playground. Like literal children just did not really understand like how to deal with this card, so they just got hosed by it. And it's like you said, they would summon a Blue Eyes, they would attack, and then it would go back to hand, and then they would just like lose the game, right? In actual like good Yu-Gi-Oh terms, this card is terrible. It's a very good meme card though. Like again, similar to Cyberjar, there's plenty of content out there of people getting wrecked by Ordeal of a Traveler. So
it's a cool card. I
like the art too. It's very menacing, like the Sphinx. Speaking of making you think, this card will make you think for sure.
Snipe Hunter. Dude, what is this art? This is crazy. Okay, so 4 stars is still normal summoned, right?
That is a normal summon.
Okay.
Yep.
Discard 1 card from your hand, select a card on the field, and roll a 6-sided dice. Oh god. If the result is not 1 or 6, destroy the selected card. 66% in this. So it's basically Ordeal with the Traveler, but it's a minion in this case. Because like,
that's a good.
Essentially, just bouncing a minion back to your hand is basically destroying it, depending on what the monster is. So I'm just gonna go like this, but you could pick any card on the field. In worst case scenario, okay, well, actually, you're discarding 1 card from your hand. Is there cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that say if this card is discarded, do this effect?
There are.
Okay, hold on.
I won't let you know if they're good or not, but
on average in Hearthstone, I would say majority of them are not great, but at least it's some kind of positive to outweigh the negative, right? Because discarding a card in Yu-Gi-Oh seems like it's an absolute travesty, considering like how little card draw appears to be in older Yu-Gi-Oh as well. If Pot of Greed is like the greatest thing of all time, so.
And this card was released after Pot of Greed was banned, for context. This was released in, I want to say this was 2007.
66% chance to do something like this. I mean, at this point in time too, is the average stat line still around this, at least for attacking? Because you're gonna put this in attack position, guaranteed.
Yeah, we might have moved up to like 1900, 2000, 2100 a bit.
Okay, so the loss of tempo is that you're destroying a card. Hopefully destroying a card. Seems like a reasonable chance. Okay, let me actually think about this in Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, there's cards like discard a card from your hand, destroy a random minion on the board. That card was somewhat played because there are cards that want to be discarded, but B, you're at least guaranteed getting it. Like you're killing a minion regardless. And then on top of that, you're also getting the body. The body was an okay stat line. This card is great stat wise, and you're rolling for a 66% chance. 6-sided die is crazy. Oh my god! But I feel like that's so like, if it works, is it good? I mean, discarding 1 card seems like it's so bad. Could you tell me on average if the discard cards are playable? Like, would you like? I don't know if we've hit a critical mass where like maybe there's a deck that can be both of them, but in like maybe the same, I don't know what you guys call them, expansion. Was there cards that were printed that like you would maybe play if you want to discard them? Because I think that actually matters quite a bit here.
Okay, so during this time, there are cards that gain some benefit, either being discarded to the graveyard or being in the graveyard, period. I would say that is the minority versus the majority.
Wait, let me actually clarify one thing. If a card is discarded, it goes to the graveyard?
Correct.
Okay, this card's probably nuts. On average, it's really, really strong. I have to imagine this is really strong, then. In my Hearthstone brain, right? We've talked about it like last time. Like if a card's discarded, it's gone. Like it's in the ether. Like it's fucking.
It doesn't
dead.
matter.
Yeah. This one actually, there's a relevant, like going to the graveyard is extremely relevant. So that means like discarding a card isn't actually as bad as I'm thinking it would be in Hearthstone.
Sure.
Unless you hit that really good card that wants to be discarded. Also, did I ever mention discarding in Hearthstone is completely fucking random unless it says something very specific, like discard the lowest card.
Is it really?
Yeah. Could you imagine? Crazy. So let me paint the picture for you here because you played classic Hearthstone. You remember Soulfire? You know what that card does?
Yeah. You pitch like a card or two and it like does a bunch of damage, right?
It's 0 mana. It used to be 0 mana. Now it costs 1, but 0 mana, deal 4 damage, discard a random card. And there was often in pro Hearthstone, because that card was very playable, toss the Soulfire and you would miss lethal because you discarded the card that you wanted to kill them with, right? So like it's crazy how that relevant RNG has been around in Hearthstone's history and it still is. Like for the most part. So the fact that graveyard, you get to pick the card and the graveyard is relevant in Yu-Gi-Oh! I would imagine this card's actually pretty decent. And if you miss the 66% chance, unfortunate, but at least discarding a card is often not that bad. So I feel like it's
final answer.
Yeah, for sure.
You're correct. This Snipe Hunter, so Snipe Hunter's interesting. We refer to Snipe Hunter as the worst best Yu-Gi-Oh card. Obviously, if you pop the thing you want to pop, it's good, but most of the time you are going to be discarding a card that you do get some value out of by having it go to the graveyard in some way. There are cards that like when they're in the graveyard, you can like banish it to like special summon another monster, or when this is in the graveyard, now I can like revive this. And so it's a way like similar to what we were talking about before with like barrel or blowback dragon, right? You can pitch that and then like revive it. So now you cheated it out essentially. You also didn't notice that this does not say once per turn on it. So hypothetically, you could discard 5 cards to try to pop 5 of your opponent's cards if you so wish. And when we're speaking of the RNG highlight reels for Yu-Gi-Oh, there's been plenty of times where someone discarded 5 cards to pop 1 monster and rolled 1 6 1 1 6 and did not pop it. And that was the difference between them winning and losing the game.
Snipe Hunter! Don't fail me, please!
Please, please, please. This would be so poetic. Please.
Don't fail.
Please. Yes!
Fusion material stuff in my graveyard.
And so yeah, it wasn't like the best card ever printed, but as far as like RNG cards go, it has a lot of upside. And so even though there are the times that it misses actually popping the card you need it to pop, I would say most of the time it evened out that the card you discarded made up for the fact that you didn't actually pop the card. So good analysis. I sort of gave you that one because I said the graveyard, but you know, you put it together.
I forgot about the graveyard, dude. It doesn't exist in Hearthstone. It's so hard to wrap my brain around it sometimes.
Here's another simple one. This is a pretty basic old card.
Select 1 monster card and 2 non-monster cards from your hand. Your opponent randomly selects 1 card among them. It's the monster card. It is special summoned and send the 2 cards to the graveyard. If not, send all of the cards to the graveyard. And I'm guessing if you don't have 3 cards in your hand, you can't do this.
I would assume so.
33% chance to get something special summoned. And this could be like, is the fusion monsters in like your extra deck? Like they won't be in your hand.
Right. So you can't get a fusion monster, but any like giant guy that can be played in your main deck. Yeah, you could bring out a Blue Eyes with this. Yes. And this is a old card. This is from 2003. So
that'd be so fun to just rip a Blue Eyes and just be like, you're an idiot. I win this game now. Wow, this is a fun card. I feel like it's miserable, but hold on.
This is a Hearthstone card if I've ever seen one.
This is just like it's so silly because it's just, and I feel like maybe some of these are like that, but this is so brutal if they just pick the wrong card. Okay, non-monster cards. So that means that the only 2 options left are spells and traps at this point in time. And could you answer me that if a spell is in the graveyard, there's like a positive effect? Like, is there any card like that at this time, like for traps or spells that like they want to be in the graveyard?
I have to think because I'm thinking like how old this card is.
Yeah, because the only reason I bring that up is because I'm pretty sure
there are benefits. I don't think necessarily that the card itself in the graveyard has a benefit, but there are benefits to having them in the graveyard.
Okay, fair. Yeah, this has to be so bad. Like, yeah, you could high roll at Disneyland, but for the most part, it's like you're running this card in your deck, and then you're just hoping that your opponent just picks the wrong card. And that just feels so bad. Also, I feel like discarding 2 non-monster cards is a really big deal. Like that's probably the biggest thing here is just you want your spells and trap cards. Like that is, it seems like it's so vital to winning a Yu-Gi-Oh game for the most part. I would be very surprised if you tell me this is good. I'm gonna go with this is bad.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Okay, so this card is actually fucking crazy.
What the fuck?
No, I'm just fucking with you. This card's awful. This card's terrible. So they had this card in the anime, and the guy, of course, is gonna hit it, right? Because it's the anime, and summons like the most like unbeatable thing ever, and of course they beat it. Yeah, this card sucks, just straight up. All the reasons you mentioned, like you need to have this and 3 other cards. Why would you ever want to get rid of 2 spells and traps on a 33%? All right. Good job.
Oh my god, I thought for sure
I got you there.
I thought you were being real. I was like, what the fuck? What am I missing? Oh, thank God.
This is actually quite a newer card. So there's a little bit of text on this one, but it's pretty straightforward.
Danger Bigfoot? Wow. Okay. You can reveal this card in your hand. Your opponent randomly chooses 1 card from your entire hand, then you discard the chosen card. Then if the discarded card was not Danger Bigfoot, special summon 1 Danger Bigfoot from your hand. And if you do, draw 1 card. If this card is discarded, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy it. You can only use this effect of Danger Bigfoot once per turn. You show this card to your opponent. You then shuffle your hand, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And then they pick the card. Okay. Wow, this is an incredibly interesting card. 3,000 attack.
Now, this is modern Yu-Gi-Oh! This was printed, I want to say, in like 2016, 2017. So obviously the caliber and quality of card has gone up.
This is a very interesting card. In older Yu-Gi-Oh!
Is there anything like this in Hearthstone?
No.
Okay.
No, there's nothing
Fair.
like this. This is wild. I was gonna say in older Yu-Gi-Oh, this might be broken, like straight up. This might be the like.
Oh, in old Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah, like this would be like a $5,000 card in old Yu-Gi-Oh, probably.
So I guess, okay, I'm trying to think of the like rationalize this in like a modern Yu-Gi-Oh mind. On average, the stat line is not relevant enough. Like if I'm thinking about like what happened with Sword Soul, like, yeah, the attack points do matter, but it's more like breaking your opponent and like setting up a board where your opponent just can't play the game anymore. This doesn't do that. This kind of just summons like a big fucker. I guess the benefit of summoning him, this counts as a special summon. So yeah, I guess the benefit of this is like you could use this card to pull something else out from like your extra deck is how I'm trying to imagine. I think legitimately worst case scenario, you're pulling this guy out. Best case scenario, to be honest, you might just destroy your opponent's card, but I feel like there's just better stuff than this. Does it really matter to get this card out like immediately? It's so interesting because if you go first, you can't swing, but then you have this huge guy on board that you can utilize. But then if it's discarded, it's also in your graveyard. Oh my God, this is so much.
This is a cool card, huh?
I wonder if Hearthstone is ever going to do like randomly pick a card from your opponent's hand, because they've kind of been really utilizing their tech recently. Like we've gotten cards now that say like discover a card at the start of your opponent's turn. They also get the same options, and if they pick the right card, the same card as you, they also get. They're kind of making waves with, like, a small indie company over here. So this is definitely possible. It's just more like, would they want to do this? And I don't know if they would. Like, I don't even know how they would do it UI wise. But Yu-Gi-Oh, God, is this good? Like, this is so interesting. Actually, this is probably the coolest card you showed me.
Yeah, see, modern Yu-Gi-Oh is not all that bad.
I mean, this is yeah. Okay, let's relax. Let's calm down over there. 3,000 attack is just. Man, I want to say this card's good, and I want to compliment on Konami here. This is a really well-designed card. I just feel like the only thing that's stopping me from wanting to say it's good is I just think there's just better stuff you could be doing. Like it's not that this card, this often happens at Hearthstone, right? Like it's just like this card's fine, but you're also putting it into your deck, and that means that you're taking a card out. And like, is this better than the card you took out? That's where my head's at. Because like, it's not a bad effect. It's also very interesting, and there's probably ways you could utilize this. But are there cards that could do that better, and you're just playing this because it's called Danger Bigfoot? I'm gonna go with it's good. I think there's probably a case where this is actually gonna be utilized. I'm not sure if it's like tier 1 meta tier, but I feel like you could probably play this.
Okay, final answer.
Final answer.
You are correct.
Oh my God.
So, cool. Danger Bigfoot, Well, there's a caveat, let's say. So, like, currently in actual modern Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time of recording this, no one's playing this card. No one has played Danger Bigfoot in, I want to say, a pretty reasonable amount of time in any like, max capacity. If it is played, it's very seldom played. But upon release, and not long after its release, there's an entire archetype that are the Danger archetype. And all of them have the effect that you reveal them, you shuffle your hand, something gets discarded, and then like you can special it, or it does something else. So in the case of Danger Bigfoot, it can target a face-up card on the field and destroy it. Some of the other ones might be like, oh, if it gets discarded, you search for any Danger card in your deck. Or it special summons itself out if it gets discarded. So either if you miss or you hit, you get to bring it out to the field, which is cool. And then you mentioned that, yes, on your first turn, if you have this card, you could summon this and a few other Danger monsters and then just use whatever tools in your extra deck that you want. You can overlay for a rank 8 Xyz monster. You can link them off. Like, there's plenty of things you can do. There's actually several FTKs that the Danger deck enabled because the Danger monsters, since they're so easy to special summon out to the field, it resulted in you being able to make these boards that your opponent just wasn't actually able to crack. So it's interesting. It's a very well-designed card. The archetype is very neat. A lot of people really like it. It was actually a TCG exclusive archetype, so Japan didn't actually have it for about a year, and then they got it later on. It's a very well-designed card. I wouldn't say it's like pushed or anything like that. It's a good card. And depending on like the way the game goes, like you may or may not play this. It's something that's worth considering.
Yeah, so I think like out of all the Yu-Gi-Oh cards I've seen, this is like probably my favorite one. Oh, Hearthstone learns from this, man. This is cool design.
Speaking of fun Yu-Gi-Oh cards, let's take a look at this one.
What the hell is this? Arcana Force. I want to say 21 actually.
21, you got it.
Okay,
that was the first test.
Okay. I just know X means 10, so I'm gonna go with that. When this card is summoned, toss. Wait, what year is this made? Okay, this is old. Okay. When this card is summoned, toss it. I was like, did we regress back to flipping coins in modern Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, there's no way they still do this. When this card is summoned, toss a coin. Heads. During your end phase, you can send 2 monsters you control to the graveyard to skip your opponent's next turn. Tails during your opponent's draw phase, add the top card of their graveyard to their hand. Holy shit.
Does Hearthstone have any turn skipping mechanics, Rarin?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
There's a card, not the new expansion that's coming out, the one that we're currently in. There's a card called Zarimi, which was like, if you summon 5 other dragons when you play this, skip your opponent's next turn. Like, you get an extra turn, basically, is what they call it. And that card was fucking broken. So, and then we've had, during Ungoro, you probably remember, there was a quest that was like, if you played 6 spells that didn't start in your deck, you got Time Warp, which gave you an extra turn as well.
Oh, that's right. I remember that, yeah.
Now, the real question is, does Yu-Gi-Oh have a card like that, where it's just like, you get an extra turn?
While you're looking at it.
Is this the only version of it? Or I guess
perhaps.
This is like older Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm assuming, right?
This card was released in 2007. So 5 years into Yu-Gi-Oh's lifespan.
If you go first, set monsters, you actually hit the heads during your next, like your opponent skips their turn, so you get to attack. Yeah, okay.
It's not your first turn. Yep.
And then also, this isn't once per turn. So hold on a second. So you can keep flipping this card actually to skip your, it doesn't matter if you keep hitting tails.
Well, it's on summon. So you're only getting this when this card is summoned. It's not an ignition effect.
Okay, they learned.
They learned since the goddess of whim.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is like a battle cry effect almost. Okay. Toss a, man, the 50-50 is such a big deal. So I'm imagining, like, if you go first and you're able to pull this card out of your deck, or your hand, I should say, and you actually hit the heads, it's massive. If you hit the tails, it's like nothing happened, because I guess they wouldn't have a card in their graveyard yet if you go first. If you're going second, I guess this card is infinitely worse if you hit the tails. But like, how likely is this that you're gonna play this the first turn in 2007 Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, I have no concept what the fuck was going on back in that day. Oh my god, I don't know, man. The thing is if I've learned from any card game, like in Magic the Gathering, as far as I'm concerned, it's very good to skip your opponent's turn. In Hearthstone, it's very good to skip your opponent's turn. And on top of that, you draw a card at the start of your draw phase, because I'm imagining they skip the turn, so you draw an extra card. So this theoretically replaces itself if you do hit the heads. And you get to send 2 monsters to the graveyard, and but you'd have to have 2 monsters on the board. This seems, no, this is bad. In Disneyland, I think this is insane. Wait, hold on. There's this weird mini game now of like, you need 2 monsters on the board in order to get, like, even if you get the heads, you need 2 monsters on the board So like what turn would you have to play this in order for this to be good? Like, could you do this on turn? I guess my question ends up being, if it's possible to do this on turn 1, I think this card's broken. But I don't know if in 2007 Yu-Gi-Oh! You can summon this card and then on top of it had 2 monsters on the board.
Now remember though, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an eternal format. So we're still allowed to play cards from 2007 today.
So you're saying at some point this card hit a critical mass where this is just fucking nuts. This is
I'm saying that's a possibility. I'm just letting you know that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is different than most other card games.
Listen, you're acting like I don't do this regularly. But when people say shit like that, you're trying to bait me. No, I think I think this is bad. I think it's bad. I'm pretty sure it's bad. I'm pretty sure.
I like your logic. You're like, okay, turn skipping in Magic is good. Turn skipping in Hearthstone is good. Turn skipping in Yu-Gi-Oh! The fastest of the 3. Yeah, that's probably bad, right?
But the thing is, this is a 50-50 and there's a caveat to it, right? Like you need the 2 monsters. If this card said, when I'm summoned, skip your opponent's next turn, it could be a fucking negative 3,000 and still being played. So I think this is bad because of the prerequisite to actually skip your opponent's turn, and it's not guaranteed.
Do you change your mind if I show you this card?
Once per turn during your standby phase, toss a coin. Great. If the result is tails, the following effects are negated until your next standby.
You can ignore the first part. The first bullet's the only part that matters.
Okay, when you summon an Arcana force, which is one of those guys, okay, monster, choose which effect to apply without a coin toss. Oh, so you can guarantee the effect. So you would play this and if you were able to summon the Arcana force. But again, it's like, okay, going second, I guess this is very strong. So it feels like it's more of a second thing than a first string. I don't know how you're able to get 2 monsters on the board, but maybe it is very likely. Let me go back to my Sword Soul moment. Hold on.
Sure.
Turn 1, I go Mo-Yi. I sacrifice it. I get another minion. There's your minion in my graveyard. And then I usually use that to get another minion from my extra deck. There's still not 2 monsters on my board. I usually end up with like 1 big guy, maybe a couple other dudes. I guess it is very likely to, if you get the good, perfect hand, it is likely to do this. And then you can send the 2 shitters so that you can just win the game. Your hand has to be so. I'm going to imagine a world that you can do this you can do this. And I'm going to say this is good. If Light Barrier is in your hand, this is probably an auto win game. Like this is Exodia in a sense. So sure, it's good.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Okay, so let me set the scene for you.
God.
I know that's your favorite. introduction. So why don't you take a look back to the Danger Bigfoot card we just reviewed prior to this? And remember how I mentioned that you can special summon as many of these danger monsters as you want without restriction, just as long as you have them. The only once per turn is on their secondary effects. But in terms of special summoning, you can get them out as many as you want. So all of a sudden, you can get 4 monsters special summoned to the field. I mean, that's like the super oversimplified version, right? Obviously, since this is Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're going to jump through every single hoop imaginable to actually get here. This Light Barrier card that I showed you is also not just something you have to have in your opening hand, it's also searchable through a myriad of different ways. So it's not like you're only going to play like 3 copies of this and hope you draw it. There's ways to like send it to the graveyard, then add it back to your hand, or just search it directly from the deck. And so as you were indicating, being able to, on the first turn, get some guys on the field, you activate Light Barrier, you tribute for the world, and then you just get the guys off the field for the effect, you skip your opponent's turn. Now on your turn, you just kill them because they couldn't put up any threats, they couldn't do anything, they're just dead. You only have a 3,000 guy, maybe 3,100, but you might have other cards on the field too, potentially, but the world might be like the centerpiece of it. But this card's bad. This card is bad. I will say this was part of they called it the World FTK. People have always been trying to break this card ever since it was released back in 2007. No one was playing this back in 2007, but as I sort of alluded to, people, as the game accelerated in terms of the pace and how frequently you could special summon, people would always try to find ways to break this card just because turn skipping, as you mentioned, is fucking crazy. So essentially, this sort of hit a critical mass when the dangers were released because you were able to easily get all the fodder on the field to tribute for both for the world as well as the monsters. There's actually a extra deck monster that can just special the world straight to the field, so that's fun. So you don't even have to tribute for it. So that just alleviates 2 monsters you need in that regard. And then you can search the field spell, you skip your opponent's turn. It just wasn't good enough. Like, even if you were going second and you weren't going to try to turn skip your opponent, you were kind of playing this, like, going second OTK deck to just kill them because the dangers could just summon themselves all out and just, like, attack your opponent, essentially. It just never really saw, like, any relevant success. It topped a couple tournaments here and there, but it's never seen like mainstream, oh, this was like the best thing you could be doing. It was more of a gimmick. There's also just so many ways to interact with this because Yu-Gi-Oh, as you know, has a lot of hand traps, cards that you can activate from the hand to interrupt your opponent's combos. And so I don't want to say it was like fragile, but like there were definitely some choke points for the strategy that made it pretty easy to stop your opponent from actually being able to turn skip you. On paper, it seems like it could be crazy, and people have been trying to lab it out for years, but it just never really saw like mainstream success. There's a few deck profiles online you could find, and it's fun, but it was never like broken by any means.
It's tough to evaluate some of these cards because it came out in 2007. Then you have to think about like what your opponent does while you're trying to do this combo, and they just stop you. I was gonna ask, they've never printed a card that just said skip your opponent's next turn, I'm guessing.
No, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have that. Not just straight up says skip your opponent's next turn. There are like cards that are like jump through hoops to try to skip your opponent's next turn, but it's like they're pretty hard. They're like this. They're really difficult to pull off.
There's something like Zurimi, like from Hearthstone, which is like just pretty basic. Just like in Heart, obviously the gameplay doesn't translate, but you can imagine in Hearthstone, it's not very hard to like summon 5 dragons.
No, not at all. There are like pseudo turn skips because there are guys you could summon that just prevent your opponent from activating any effects. So it's like even though you don't actually skip their turn, they like can't play the game. That's like the equivalent of what we have. But at that point, they may as well have just made it a turn skip.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Yeah, I was going to say, probably in any other card game, that's the most dangerous line of text ever. Like, in Magic, it seems very, very good, but like in Yu-Gi-Oh, like, you don't have a mana, so you're just fucking roll them if you get the extra turn.
It's only a few left. We'll go back to some more simple ones here.
What the fuck is this? Okay, Fiend Comedian.
This is us.
Is this us? Which one are you?
I'm the green one. I'm giving you the thumbs up.
Okay. Wow, why do I look so fucking evil over there? What the hell? Toss a coin and call it. If you call it right, all your opponent's cards in the graveyard are removed from play immediately. If you call it wrong, send a number of cards equal to the cards in your opponent's graveyard from your deck to your graveyard. Wait, this is just good. Isn't this just good?
Like I don't know. Is it? I'm asking you the question.
The only real... Okay, I think both effects are good. Like, if Yu-Gi-Oh is a game where your graveyard is very useful. Like again, I'm thinking about modern Yu-Gi-Oh here. I'm not thinking about whenever this when this card was invented. Pop this trap card while I'm trying to do my sword soul combo. Like you might just roll me. Like it might just be GG. Like I don't know what I would do if you just got this correct. And then also adding a bunch of cards to your graveyard also just seems really good. And I'm guessing it's just off the top, or I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's just off the top.
You're not picking, so
it's just off the top.
I mean, if you're putting this card in your deck, it's. I mean, I don't really think I have to analyze this. I think this is just a good card. Like I think it's just both the circumstances end up being probably a positive for you for the most part. So. It's probably good.
Final answer. Wow, that was pretty straightforward. Okay.
I just listen. The graveyard in Yu-Gi-Oh is such a spooky place that, like, if I'm stopping my opponent from having one, that's good, and if I'm getting a bigger graveyard, that's probably good. And in a game, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh, where you're not getting consistent draw, I guess you could tutor, but like for the most part, like there's like Pot of Greed is the one I always come back to. Like you don't have a lot of cards like that. If I'm just taking a set amount of cards and I'm putting it in my graveyard, it's almost like I drew them and then discarded them. So that seems just good for the most part, as long as my deck allows it to be good, which if you're going to put this card in your deck, you're probably thinking about that anyway. So I just think this is fine.
Final answer?
Yeah, final answer.
I feel like I want to give you like a half point for this because you sort of got part of it right, but you're also like completely wrong. So you got it right where if a deck can play this card, there's like a certain deck that would want to play this essentially. Not every deck would want to. And even then, is this like card worth the slot in your deck is a question. It is a trap card, so it does take a turn. And especially for the second part of effect where it says you send you mill the top cards equal to the amount in your opponent's graveyard. That's not going to be good like immediately, right? Especially in older Yu-Gi-Oh, it's going to take some time to like get the graveyard filled up to a degree. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh is a lot different because you can just get 20 guys in there turn one. Fiend Comedian's an interesting card because this is a card where it doesn't really, like, do anything. Like, yes, banishing stuff out of your opponent's graveyard isn't bad. But, like, unless your opponent's actually playing a deck that plays from the graveyard in some capacity, there is a notorious deck called Lightsworn that is, like, the mill casino deck, where, like, all these cards want to be in the graveyard. All the cards say mill. And in a deck like this, Fiend Comedian's pretty good because it's just, like, another outlet for you to be able to mill stuff. This card like saw very niche like side deck play for like against certain matchups potentially, or if your deck could benefit from it. But aside from that, so that was sort of in line with what you were saying about the right deck would want to play this. But for the most part, this card is just a giant meme, and the artwork I think represents that quite well.
Okay, so it's interesting that, okay, so this card doesn't seem bad. It's just there's better stuff that you could be doing. And for the most part, like the better stuff is just way better than what this is.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a do nothing card if you read it, right? Like the mills are random based off what your opponent has. And like if you're going to play mill stuff, there's other cards that you just can play to mill way more or just way better cards instead of just randomly milling stuff.
I think one of the main things about Yu-Gi-Oh that's hard to grasp for me is like you guys have like this eternal format where no card rotates. In Hearthstone and Magic, right? They all have like we have like standard and like they have like a slightly bigger format, et cetera, et cetera. But like in a standard format, like where that you don't have every card, I wonder how good this card would actually end up being.
All right, 2 left. This one has a lot of text. I'm just going to point out the only part of this that matters is the first bullet point. So you only have to read that sentence.
Is this pronounced telephon?
It is.
Morphtronic telephon. Okay, only
He's
the
a
first
cute little guy.
Okay. Yeah, he is kind of cute. He's got, what is he holding though? Is that a fucking weapon? Attack positions once per turn during your main phase. You can roll a 6-sided die and gain
your favorite.
I know, dude. I can't believe you guys rip out dies for this game. That's actually crazy. And gain life points equal to the result x 100. Okay, so times 100.
Times 100.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then you could special summon one Morphtronic monster from your graveyard with a level equal or lower than the result. So if you get 6, that's 600. That's kind of whatever. But then I guess you're playing this mainly for the special summon. When was this card released? This looks like a newer card. Just from
relatively recently, like within the past 3-ish years, I want to say. Okay,
so you're saying like I'm just reading the defense position one, like just in my head. You're never playing this card in defense position. Like there's probably just way better cards for that kind of effect. So
I mean, I was just trying to make it easy for you so you didn't have to read as much.
That's fair. I'm just trying to imagine, like, again, is this really the best that you could be doing? It's tough because I don't know what the rest of like the set looks like for the Morphtronic cards, but special summoning in Yu-Gi-Oh seems like it's really powerful across every archetype in the game. So I guess it could be okay. The problem is if you roll a 1, you can only summon special summoning with 1 star, as far as I'm understanding, right? Which means I guess you could rip another one of these if you have it and then try again. Are these like unique? Does that make sense? Like, because this is once per turn. If they have the same name, is it like only once per turn if they share the same name, or are they both like their own thing? So you would have to, okay, without knowing anything, I'm just gonna have to take a couple guesses here. If you have a 6-sided die, the life point seems irrelevant here. You're playing this for the special summon. Like maybe the life points are relevant, but I'm sure they're not. So you have 1 seems whatever. 2, I guess is fine. 3, like I guess maybe you're cooking. It depends what the effects are. 4, 5, 6, like it's the same concept. It really comes down to, is the whole critical mass of like the Morphtronic cards worth playing, and rolling that RNG on average, is it good enough? That is literally impossible to answer without seeing the rest of the cards. But I would imagine that if they're making a whole set like in Hearthstone, right? Like if they design like a whole package around it, they want it to be playable. But in the grand scheme of Yu-Gi-Oh, is that something that you'll see? I'm gonna probably say with no, because of the RNG aspect. Like I feel like that's actually really detrimental. Like I think in 2020 Yu-Gi-Oh and so on and so forth, like you want to be pretty consistent. So like I don't think this is that good. Yeah, that's my final answer. Let me guess, it's broken. Let me guess. It's so tough to answer this one.
There's a bit of a trick here, and so we're going to highlight why. So you noticed correctly that it does say once per turn. In Yu-Gi-Oh, we have hard once per turns versus soft once per turns. Soft once per turn means that if this card were to leave the field in some way, but then return, the effect can be activated again, because there isn't any line of text anywhere saying you can only use this effect of Morphtronic Telephon once per turn. That's how you know it's a hard once per turn, is because it says that. If it just says once per turn, yes, you can only use it once when you play it. But if the same copy were to leave the field somehow and then return, it's considered a new card that hasn't used the effect yet. You were sort of on the right track, where with Morphtronic Telephon, it is a level 1, so if you roll a 6-sided die, no matter what, you can summon another copy of Telephon out of your graveyard, because it'll, no matter what, be 1 or lower. Now that you have 2 of these, you can remove the first one from the field somehow that you already used the effect of. Let's say you use it for a synchro summon, a link summon, whatever summoning mechanic you choose. The second telepon hasn't used its effect yet, so you can bring back the first telepon. And you could probably start to see where this is going now that I'm saying this. So basically, 2 copies of telepon in rotation can theoretically go infinite and giving you infinite value for your monsters that are on the field to use for any sort of summoning mechanic. And this was essentially the key piece of what is known as the telepon FTK, which basically would make it so that you would just win the game on your first turn through obviously jumping through millions of different hoops like Yu-Gi-Oh typically does. Yeah, I mean, it's a solid card. The deck never like really took off. I think they hit some of the key combo pieces of the FTK pretty early on, so it never saw like widespread success as a result. It was kind of limited to like lower level tournaments, but it's still something that when people saw that they were printing this, they're like, oh, this is a disaster. So it's an RNG card that really doesn't have any RNG because it always guarantees to, you know, hit effectively. So the other Morphtronic cards were irrelevant here because you're just cycling the same 2 telepons over and over and over again.
Yeah, I guess if it doesn't count like a once per turn, if it re-enters the battlefield, I guess that means it's a lot better. Yeah. I mean,
right. And so that's crazy because most modern Yu-Gi-Oh cards have hard once per turn clauses on them. So the fact that this one did it, everyone's like, oh, this card's broken. All right, last one. Last one. This is a infamous RNG card. This is an infamous RNG card. So I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are going to be on this one.
6 cents. Declare 2 numbers from 1 to 6. Then your opponent rolls a 6-sided die. If the result is one of the numbers you declared, you draw that many cards. Otherwise, send a number of cards on the top of your deck to the graveyard equal to the result. Okay. Wow. So this is potentially Pot of Greed if it hits one of those numbers. Wait, so if you would always pick 6. Like you would always pick 6 if you want to, like most of the time, unless you're like worried about being milled, you're always picking 6.
Well, you declare 2 numbers.
Right. But like, I mean, like, I'm just thinking about, you're probably thinking about drawing as many cards as possible. So like, in most situations, 6 and 5 seems like the best case scenario. So you draw that many cards. Because again, like, it's like, yeah, like, oh my God, I'm just putting cards in my graveyard again. Like, that's not the worst thing in the world. Oh my God, what the fuck? Oh my God. See, like, it could be so fucking nuts. I can't even imagine your opponent's face if you rip this and you draw 6 cards. Like, that is fucked. In modern
in a game where Pot of Greed is banned. In a game where Pot of Greed is banned, by the way.
The thing about Pot of Greed that makes it so strong too, I imagine, is that you can play it whenever. Like, you play it on your turn. You don't have to worry about being a trap card. Trap cards can only be flipped on your opponent's turn.
They can be flipped anytime after the turn that you set them.
I'm just trying to think about when you would do this. So you would play this, you let your opponent go. If they destroy this, you're like, what the fuck? But for the most part, like, let's imagine a world where this actually goes through. And you go back to your turn, you flip it. You're then hoping that you hit those 2 numbers. If they go to the graveyard, I guess it's not the worst in the world. Again, they go to the graveyard. I don't know. Is this good? Like, it seems like it's fine. Again, it kind of reminds me of the Fiend comedian there, where it's like in both circumstances, like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, you're probably okay with both. But obviously you want to hit like the draw because that's just insane. I think this is actually okay. In a world where Pot of Greed is banned, and I'm imagining that card draw is not that great, and like maybe this is a low power level format where this will actually go through, it's fine. I'm just trying to think of like, how likely is this actually to go through?
This was released in 2014, so about midway through Yu-Gi-Oh's lifespan.
I'd rather have a card that does something than like delayed card draw that may not even work. Yeah, okay, it's probably bad. I'm gonna go with bad, yeah.
Final answer?
Yeah, final. Yeah, it's good. It's great, isn't it? It's fantastic.
So let me give you some history about 6th Sense.
Okay, can't wait.
So 6th Sense was actually, interestingly enough, released in the OCG very early on in the game. I think it was like one of like the first sets that came out in like 2000 or 2001. So it's interesting we didn't get this card till like 10 years later. You were kind of like thinking like, oh, how is this in like old Yu-Gi-Oh versus I mentioned how this got released for us like middle of Yu-Gi-Oh's lifespan. So you thought that this card actually be pretty good for like old Yu-Gi-Oh just because, you know, the context of the format, right? That's kind of what you were getting at. So since we're talking about context of the format, the best deck during this time was a deck called Dragon Rulers. Dragon Rulers basically dominated the game for about more than a year, like let's say 2 years generously. They were just like the best deck far and away that you could be doing. And surprise, surprise, they were a deck that took advantage of the graveyard, right? So when it comes to 6th Sense, even if you don't hit 5 or 6, which you were correct in identifying, that's typically what you want to do. Even if you mill 4, the Dragon Rulers have the ability to resurrect themselves from the graveyard by banishing other dragons. So you might mill a Dragon Ruler and 2 dragons, and now all of a sudden, The downside doesn't really matter because now you can like just summon these guys back out to the field. So yeah, you didn't get to draw, you know, your 5 or 6 cards or whatever. But in a scenario where this actually resolved, it was like a negligible downside. And that's sort of like kind of what you were weighing with like Fiend Comedian. This card is fucking batshit insane.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So this card was banned a day after it was released in the TCG.
Okay.
Because, and in the OCG, it was banned very quickly as well, because just being able to, like you said, it would be infuriating if you go against this and your opponent rolls a fucking 6 and draws 6 cards. The game is over. You're not recovering from your opponent drawing 6 cards. Like, in a sense where Pot of Greed is banned, every card that draws you cards is basically banned in some capacity. And they're going to release this into the game. This card single-handedly, like, sold the set that it was produced in. It was a common, it was like a mega short printed card, so it was super hard to get, and then they banned it like the day after it was released. So that's cool, Konami, thanks. It doesn't matter if you mill 4 cards. It doesn't matter if, like, it doesn't matter. If you hit 5 or 6, you're winning the game. Like, it's literally an auto win card if it hits. You said, like, oh, if it gets destroyed. If your opponent tries to destroy this after you set it, you can just chain it. It's a trap card, so it'll resolve anyway, so that doesn't even matter. The only real way they can stop this effect is if they have some sort of card that can negate another trap card, which is pretty uncommon during this time. Like, there are some, but people weren't playing them. Usually the cards to negate other trap cards are trap cards. So, like, you'd have to set that for a turn to even get a chance to stop your opponent using Sixth Sense on you. And that's just the way that the game was. And so, thankfully, this card was not around for very long because it was absolutely batshit insane. It's going to stay on the ban list forever. They're never going to unban this. Any card game, well, to be fair, I was going to say any card game that lets you draw 6 probably sucks, but that's Pokemon, so I don't know about that. And I guess Hearthstone probably has that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Drawing 6 to us is unfathomable. And yeah, this card was actually nuts.
I'm gonna give you a card in Hearthstone. You can tell me whether or not it'd be the most broken card in Yu-Gi-Oh of all time. Not discard your hand, but like put your hand to the side, draw 5 cards from your deck. At the end of the turn, put those cards back into your deck and pick up your other hand.
That would be actually like maybe the craziest Yu-Gi-Oh card imaginable. When you put your hand to the side, can you not play with it? I'm assuming
you can't use those cards until your next turn.
Yeah, no. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, you would empty your hand, play that, get a new hand, and then you would just play with that. Yeah, it's broken. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I just want to let you know when that card was released, the amount of people were like, "What the fuck are they doing?" Like in Hearthstone. Because
that's like a Yu-Gi-Oh card in Hearthstone. I'm sorry.
So I actually, this is kind of like a little bit of a tangent on this. I just did I did like a climb to Legend in the Wild format, which is basically Yu-Gi-Oh's format, like the Eternal format in Hearthstone. That card is like, you have to, like, it's an auto craft. Like, there's no question. Like, you're crafting the card. So it's wild. Like, card came out maybe 2020, and it's arguably one of the best cards Hearthstone's ever seen, but probably the best draw card we've ever seen.
But even with Sixth Sense, like, even if you weren't playing a deck that relied on the graveyard, you still played this card. It didn't matter. It was just absolutely insane. I think I misspoke. I don't think they banned it immediately. I think they limited it, like, on release, and then they banned it, like, a month, maybe a few weeks later, because they had to sell the product first, then they banned the card because it was broken. I knew I was forgetting something. Yeah, they limited it first, then they banned it, like, almost immediately.
When something's limited, you mean, so you could put like 3 in a deck, and then they only limited to 1 copy.
Correct.
Right?
So you'd only have 1 copy of this card, which makes it arguably even sackier, because that means if you drew that one of, then you're just that good at the game,
it's interesting how, like, when a card is limited, it is still that powerful that they're like, okay, look, we gotta get rid of it.
Yeah, it happens very frequently. So I'd say overall, you did a pretty good job as the RNG master that you are from Hearthstone, identifying like what good or bad RNG based cards are. So I'm proud of you. Good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm actually,
you're learning so much about Yu-Gi-Oh. Aren't you loving
so
this?
What I learned in this video, one, if it doesn't say once per turn, it's fucking insane. If it has a soft once per turn, it's also fucking insane.
Yep.
So there we go. That's crazy.
And Sixth Sense doesn't have a once per turn, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that.
I want you to know when you're like, there's a difference between a soft once per turn and a hard once per turn. Like, I'm pretty sure my face just got like so confused where you're going.
Oh, probably. That's our like jargon that we use, because there's no other like official language to describe. We don't have keywords or anything, so we have to make this shit up ourselves. Thanks, Konami.
It makes sense the way you described it, because that's how it works in Hearthstone, right? If you bounce a card back to your hand, you can it counts as like a new effect. It makes total sense. But because you've already laid the groundwork of like what once per turn was, I was like, oh, you can't do this more than once. So like, it's just, unless you get like a different copy of the card. That's why I wanted to clarify. That was so stupid. What the?
Gotta keep tricking you a bit. Gotta keep tricking you. But yeah, so anytime like modern Yu-Gi-Oh players read new cards, you'll always be like, wait, that's not a hard once per turn, because you'll be like, there's no conceivable way that you can only use this card like once, right? And then like people do stuff again and they're like, oh, so okay, this card's broken. Yep, pretty much.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm writing all this down. One of these days I'm never gonna get one wrong.
Write that down. Write that down.
So silly.
I'm going to give you the Yu-Gi-Oh quiz one day and be like, what's the difference between a hard once per turn and a soft once per turn? That'd be a good video, actually, if we did that for each of us. I don't know. That'd be fun. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoy. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all of their continued support. So, shout to Shout1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Medolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, Phoenix the Immortal, Pony Stark, The Synchro Guy, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fade Leaf, Draconic, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Extremely Vulgar Man, Brody Eastwood, Flannel Daddy, Chrono the Branded Enjoyer, Twinkle Muncher, Matthew Brady, Uncle Brian of Stardust, Power Rave, both out a stupidly long name that barely makes any sense and is annoying to read out loud, Cheeks McLapperty, Stolfin Amethyst, Wonder Waffle, MBT canceled by all community soon, canceled by all committee soon, canceled by all players soon, Nicholas Carpenter, Corvain, Calvin Tempest, RIP Akira Toriyama, Daniel Howell, and life keeps using solemn judgment on my hopes and dreams. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.